Okay, it's Tuesday, September the 9th. For some reason we had a minor glitch. Well, actually it'd be a big glitch since we had sound and no picture, but somehow I managed to work out the technical difficulties. I just stopped it and restarted. For me, though, that's a major technical accomplishment. So we'll hope that this succeeds for the remainder of the session. Good to have you here with us, as always. I always get nervous when we have technical problems because that usually means, for me, the kiss of death, because I can't usually manage to adjust. Let me start off with one of the letters that was sent to me. This is more of a comment about an experience that happened. This writer says, I witnessed real love in action, and I'm so grateful for the experience. It might be worth sharing. Yesterday, my wife put some stuff in the dishwasher, and I told her that the stuff in there was clean. And so, that bothers those of us who are a little OC, to put stuff in that's dirty in a dishwasher with stuff that's clean. And she said, I know, but I messed it up and I have to run it again. I said, okay, and then I told her and so in an effort to make her not feel bad about that, he continues. He says, I told her, excuse me. He said, okay, and then I told her how I had run a load of clothes in the washer not too long ago, forgetting to put detergent in it. There was no deliberation on my part. It just came out of my mouth. He said, I love it when it flows like that. His point is that in the past he would have hidden, it never have occurred to him to tell the truth about a mistake when she told the truth about a mistake that she'd told. And so what he's experiencing is how fun it is to just freely share the truth about mistakes. And he's just finding out just what a hoot it is to just be open and honest like this, something he's not experienced before, understanding and experiencing real love. So he continues. Later she came out to the backyard where I was working on the pool with an expression on her face like she was in severe pain. Then she said that she was going to lunch with her family and that she'd put her sister's dog in the laundry room. I said, oh, wow. Because I knew that once they were gone, the poor critter would howl and bark until they came back. I don't know how much I don't love you was in the wow that I spoke versus just an expression of surprise. I did notice, however, that she already knew that leaving the dog there was selfish because it was just for their convenience and not caring about either the dog nor me. That's why she looked like somebody was tearing her nails out when she came up to tell me about the dog. So, see, that's a very cool thing that you're doing. What do you need to do about this? Nothing. You just told the truth about it. You're noticing that your wow had an element of selfishness or an element of I don't love you, as you put it, in it, which is outstanding. We don't have to feel bad. We don't have to feel guilty. We just have to notice, just observe the truth about the selfishness that we have when we have it in the moment. And as we tell the truth about it, often just to ourselves, that alone enables us to make less and less selfish, or if you look at it another way, more and more loving choices progressively. As we tell the truth to other people about the selfish choices that we make, then that also creates the opportunity for people to love us while we're being selfish, and to love us, therefore, unconditionally, which is just really very fun. What you're doing here is just a riot. Then this morning, he continues, there was some bacon on the counter. See, these all sound like such nothing things. A dog in the laundry room and dishes in the dishwasher. It is of these supposedly little experiences that who we are is both created and manifested. So there are no little experiences. Every experience in our lives is literally life or death. It's what makes us. And so they're all very important. If we find that we're becoming agitated, irritated, fearful over these little things, it's these little things that are really giving us opportunities to see who we are, that we are angry, selfish, fearful. So it's really important that we observe who we are in these supposedly little moments. So he continues, this morning there was some bacon on the counter. And I said, oh, there's bacon. So you can imagine the tone that he was using when he said that, like, this is mine. She said, yes, but there's only a little bit, and I need it for cooking. Then, with some anger, she pointed out that I hadn't eaten the leftovers last night. I went out and had Chinese instead, and that she needed the space in the fridge. Now, this could look utterly puzzling. People have these encounters every day. Here he is, he's talking about, I just wanted some bacon. And she's attacking him for not eating the leftovers. This appears to make no sense at all. But see, it does make sense. She's feeling bad about something here, and she's attacking him to make herself feel better. And it's going to become apparent here in a second why she just attacked him. So he continues, so I ate the leftovers for breakfast. A little later I saw that she served the bacon. See, she really didn't need it for cooking. She served the bacon to her son and his wife. That explains why she was angry and wanted me out of the kitchen. See, he came out, he wanted the bacon. She felt guilty that, she wasn't going to let him eat the bacon. And so what does she do? Instead of just simply explaining, I'm selfishly saving the bacon for my son and his wife, and I'm not going to let my own husband have the bacon. Actually, it's not necessarily a selfish thing. I mean, there's no reason you can't save it for one person versus another. But instead of having the courage to explain it, instead of doing that, she's going to self-justify. She's going to make herself feel better by diverting to another subject and attacking him. Well, you didn't eat the leftovers last night that were in the fridge, which, frankly, is none of her business. It's none of her business what he ate last night, whether he ate leftovers or Chinese or the food out of the dog bowl. It's really none of her business. And so her anger is really about her guilt. And so she made it all about him. And then he continues, all her anger is about her own guilt. He understands this already knowing that she isn't honest or is making a bad choice and has nothing to do with me. And he's really understanding real love just brilliantly here. He continues, I can love her right there and try to provide a non-threatening environment while she's making her own choices. Boy, how this would be different without real love. You think? Because it would turn into endless arguments about bacon, Chinese food, refrigerators, dogs in laundry rooms, and these arguments go on endlessly. Why? Because people think that they're having discussions about those peripheral subjects, when the real subject of the conversation is, do you care about me? That's the subject. Once people get that that's the central subject and they address that topic, well, we can address that in a heartbeat. And your partner comes up and puts their arms around you and says, sweetie, for example, the bacon, I love you, and I prepared the bacon for Susie and Freddie, who are coming over for breakfast. I have planned that for some time, and there's only enough for them. So you can have anything else in the house, and you can't have the bacon. Well, all you wanted to know was that she loves you. And now you don't really care much about the bacon. And she says, if you want to, later today, we'll go down to Walmart and buy you 2 pounds of bacon, and I'll drape it all over your body. Whatever. It's not important. What you cared about was that she loves you. Instead of having a senseless argument about bacon and leftovers and Chinese food. So you're really getting the point. It's always about love, not bacon. Here's a woman who says, I have just discovered the principles of real love, and they've changed my life. My husband is having an affair because of some of the things that I have done that were not based on real love. I want him to end the affair, and deep down, he wants to as well, but he feels connected to this woman that he's having the affair with of 3 months. We've been married for 20 years. I want to show him what I've learned. How can I do this while the affair is continuing? As I've said, your book has enlightened me dramatically. I'm on the second reading, and I've got notes on everything, trying to put it into practice right now. We've seen counselors on and off for a few years, and never has anyone made the real love topic so clear and easy to follow. I realize how wrong I've been in dealing with him. If I'd had this understanding 6 months ago, we wouldn't be in this situation now. I know he loves me. He's really scared, I think, of breaking off this 3-month relationship with this woman, because I don't think he can trust that I've made such a change in my thought process. It's not all my fault, as I'm sure you know, and he does realize what he's doing is wrong, but he's made a commitment to this new woman now, and of course he doesn't know how to break it off with her. I think he loves us both, but her for the wrong reasons. It's imitation love, but he's not seeing that. We're all hurt. We're in our early 40s. We run a profitable business together that we built from scratch and have 2 boys, 11 and 13 years old. It's a mess, and yeah, by this time it does get to be quite a mess. I know him best of all, and I know he's confused, and I know why. I understand the law of choice. There's nothing I can do but wait it out. How can I continue to be loving to him knowing what he's doing? On top of that, I'm not mad or angry, just hurt. He may be open to speaking on the phone. He's read some of the book, but when I try to discuss it with him, he said when he reads it, he thinks about how he can use it in his new relationship instead of in ours. This is very, very, very hurtful. So let me back up. You said that your husband's having an affair because of some of the things that you have done that were not based on real love. You need to lighten up a whole lot on yourself. For one thing, this is very painful for you, and you're understanding a lot of the principles of real love, and you're understanding that you contributed a lot to the pain in his life so that he would want to go looking somewhere else for imitation love. True. But you're saying here that he's had an affair because of the things that you've done. Well, you contributed, sure. How much? Who knows? I mean, you could make up a number. Maybe you contributed 23% to the pain in his life. Who knows? The number's really not. But the real reason for the pain in his life is that he hasn't felt enough unconditional love for a lifetime. And you can't claim responsibility for that. And you're not going to be the only person who's going to be able to turn that around either. So you have to acknowledge, I think, first that, or I would recommend, you don't have to do anything, but I would recommend that you acknowledge first the pain that you're experiencing and try not to do all of this just intellectually in your head without recognizing your own pain, and try not to do this alone. So I'd recommend that you get on the website, that you contact people in the teleconference calls that are held every day, and you connect yourself with people who can support and love you first while you're going through this. Now, loving you is different than giving you sympathy. You don't need anybody who's going to just sympathize and help you feel like a victim. And I'm sensing here that you're not looking for that. I'm not seeing a whit of that. But you do need people to help you feel genuinely loved and supported so that you don't do this alone. Because you need to really feel loved before you talk to him. You're not feeling loved because, as you say here, you feel really, really hurt. Now, you say you don't feel mad or angry. I believe you, although we tend often to feel mad or angry and often don't recognize it. But even if you don't feel mad or angry, it's just as harmful to him if you feel hurt. That may sound confusing, but if you come to him angry, it's pretty obvious when you come to somebody angry that they get the message, I don't love you. I mean, it's obvious as can be when you come at them in a rage. But when you come at somebody hurt, they get the same message of, I don't love you. Because when you come at them hurt, you come at them with this gaping, cavernous need for them to repair you, to make you feel better. And he can't stand that. Remember, the reason, as you look at him, remember the story of the metaphor of the drowning man. The reason he's having an affair is that he's drowning. And so if you're hurt, you're drowning too. So he's already drowning. And if you come to him hurt and you're also drowning, he's going to run from you as fast as he can go. He's going to reach out to whoever he believes can hold his head above water at all. And in this case, since he doesn't know what real love looks like, he's going to reach out to whoever can offer him the most imitation love in the moment. And that's going to be the woman that he's having the affair with. Because he's already tired of the old imitation love from you. So then you come to him feeling hurt, which communicates to him, I need you to help me. And he's going, you've got to be kidding me. I don't have anything to give you. And so he's going to, if anything, tend to push you away. So it's going to frighten him, confuse him, irritate him, bother him, annoy him. And so if you understand that, and you get sufficiently loved by some people in the real love community, then you may be able to talk to him in a less needy way. Or you may be able to, let's talk about that. So how would you talk to him? You could explain to him that you understand that your emptiness, your neediness, you didn't describe exactly here what behaviors on your part helped to drive him away or help to create the affair, because again, it wasn't all your fault. He came to your marriage already empty and afraid, or this wouldn't have happened. So, but clearly there have been some behaviors on your part that at least contributed to the affair. So you could say to him, I can see now what behaviors on my part have helped bring us to this place. And I'm still not full enough to describe to you what we can do to really change things, to make a huge difference, and to show you what enormous advantages there would be, like earth-shaking advantages there would be to repairing our relationship versus your using these principles in a new relationship. I would not be a neutral person in describing this to you, but I can recommend somebody who would be able to describe the advantages to you. Somebody who would have no vested interest in doing this. No vested interest in describing me as an advantage versus the other woman. And then if he's interested, I'd be happy to talk to him because I don't have a side to take. And I could describe to him how he would have huge advantages in trying to work it out with you first. Once you begin to start taking the escape hatch, once we learn in our lives that when things become difficult in a relationship, if we learn that we can reach out and simply pull the bell or flip the switch or hit the button and escape when things get difficult and go to a new source of imitation love, that becomes a pattern in life that tends to repeat itself over and over again. That's what addicts do. That's what drug addicts do. That's what sex addicts do. That's what relationship addicts do. And it's been demonstrated absolutely beyond question that when people leave a marriage relationship that's in conflict like yours is and immediately replace it with the next relationship, the odds of success in the next relationship are horrible. Way less than the success in the first marriage. Divorce rates in this country in first marriages are 60%. Divorce rates in the second marriage are 75%. Third marriages are 84, something like that, percent. It gets worse and worse because when the pain gets bad, we reach out for relief. It just becomes a really awful recurring pattern. Then you have the effects on, holy smokes, your children, the immediate effects on your children. Then you have the effects on what your children are going to see as an example for relationships, an example for what your children are going to see for marriage. I mean, the resounding effects that you're going to see on the rest of your lives are horrifying if you don't first at least apply the one element, the one principle that would enable your relationship to work. You got nothing to lose. If he tries real love in your marriage, and I mean really tries it, like you dive in all the way and you apply real love, and it doesn't work, well then he can always go back to this relationship. What's he got to lose? Whereas if he doesn't try it and goes to this new relationship, the potential losses are horrifying. So trying real love, it's a total no-risk deal. Whereas not trying the one thing that's necessary, quitting the relationship before you try the one thing that's necessary for a relationship to work, is just, well, kind of doesn't make sense. So if he'd like, I'd be glad to talk to him, glad to talk to him on the phone. Many people could just come to Georgia. He could do that. And we'd work for several days and get the relationship kick-started and then do it with coaching afterward. There's lots of different ways that it could be done. So there's oodles of hope is what I'm suggesting, rather than just giving up. I say Georgia because that's where I live, as opposed to it being like a sacred healing place on the planet. Georgia's mostly noted for grits and corn pone. Here's another writer. Who says, when my 8-year-old whines and complains about kids at school being mean, and she wants to go on and on about this one particular girl who's her friend, but seems to irritate her the most, what do? Do I just listen to her, even though I know it's not helping her, to just whine about it? I don't know how to teach her in these moments because she doesn't want to hear what I have to say. I do a horrible job at loving her because it empties me out to listen to her whine. I try to tell her that her friend is empty. She needs to be loved. We can't control what other people do. I'll tell you in a minute why I'm finding this funny. We can't control what other people do. We're responsible for our happiness. Remember that you can't expect any one person to love you. Remember that you are loved by so many others. Either help her out of the drowning pool by loving her, and if you can't do that, just walk away so that she doesn't drag you in the water, and so on. But she says, you said I can tell you anything, and gets mad at me for interrupting her when she's whining. She says, it's not whining. She says, this isn't whining, and then she gives me an exaggerated example of what whining to her really sounds like. But nothing I say seems to work. Do I just not say a word and wait for her to stop talking as long as it takes, and then just hold her? How do I love her and teach her in this moment and get her to stop whining? What would you do? The reason I'm laughing is that notice what you're saying here. You're saying, it empties me out to listen to her whine. And the reason that it empties you out is because you're not listening to her. You say it empties you out to listen to her. If we are genuinely listening to people, then it doesn't empty us out. It's a joy to genuinely listen. And notice what you say here at the end. You say, how do I love and teach her and get her to stop whining? If you're genuinely listening to somebody, you're not trying to get them to anything. So you're not really listening to her. And the reason she keeps whining at you is that she's not convinced that you're hearing her. So notice you keep interrupting her. And boy, you've really got the principles of real love down. Law of expectations, remember you're loved by others, the drowning metaphor. You've got all these things down intellectually, and what you're doing is you're pulling these principles out almost like bullets, and you're shooting this 8-year-old kid with them. So she needs to feel more loved and heard before she needs to be pummeled with principles. So relax with this kid. She's 8. So listen to her. So when the kid, is talking to you, when she says, this kid is really mean, listen. Say, wow, man, that really does sound mean. She's listening for you to say that. Until you do, you're not hearing her. Wow, that really does sound mean. You must feel terrible. And then she's waiting for the next thing. That really does sound mean. But see, when your daughter's speaking, what's the third rule of seeing? The speaker's always describing himself. So what she's really trying to tell you about is how she feels. So you say, wow, that must feel really terrible. I mean, when your friend talks about that, you must feel really what? What does that feel like? Like, you must feel like alone. Like your friend doesn't, care about you. And you're going to see your daughter's little face just light up all over the place. Yes, mother, that's what I've been trying to tell you. That's what she's really trying to say. Yeah, and that just really feels awful. Or it feels like your friend is telling you, I don't love you. And then you might even add, which would be a reflection of 8, you might tell your daughter why that feels so bad for her friend to tell her that. It feels so bad because you've told her that on so many occasions. Well, yeah, of course that feels really terrible because, your friend doing that must sound just like when I've told you blank. And you give her an example of when you've treated her like that. Doesn't it sound an awful lot like that when I've done that to you? Now you're really listening to your daughter, you see? You want to make sure your daughter really gets heard. Then, eventually, like when she's really been listened to, and if that takes an hour, then tough. I mean, when my kids are telling me this, boy, for the longest time, my kids would, when they go through certain ages, for example, and they watch a movie, and they come down and they say, Dad, I just watched a movie, and they want to tell you about the movie. Oh, when they're a certain age, they tell you every line in the movie. And so it's like you just as well have rented it yourself, because they tell you the entire thing. And there's no way you can say to the kid, would you hurry up and get to the end? What do they hear at that point? I don't care about you. So you get to hear the whole thing. Or if a kid comes back from a soccer game or whatever and they tell you every line of dialogue between them and some friend about the clothes they were wearing. Now, I could not care less about the clothes they were wearing. But if my child's mouth is moving, suddenly that subject is important. So you're going to listen to your daughter. You're not trying to get her to stop whining. You want to listen to her till she gets that you hear her. Then eventually you can teach her a principle. One, slowly, bit by bit. The important thing, though, that you're forgetting is that the more she feels loved by you, the less she will whine. Not the more you teach her, the more she feels loved by you, and you don't get to skip that step. Then, occasionally, you might even do some practice sessions. You might describe how she might react differently to her friend. But see, that comes way after loving her, listening to her, occasionally teaching her a principle, and then way down the road describing how she might react differently to them. But that's the teaching's way after the loving. So try the listening first. My niece's husband has just confessed. Niece's husband has just confessed that he's addicted to heroin, and he likes it. Well, sure. Somebody who's just barely gotten addicted to something always likes it. That's why they're addicted. Nobody who's just freshly addicted to something hates it. He claims to be only an occasional user since his early teens and before they married. And he's demanding that my niece put up with his drug use, gambling, and stealing money from her and her relatives. My niece is scared about leaving him because he keeps telling her that no one is ever going to love her as he does, one can hope. How can I best coach my niece? Boy, that's just one of the most difficult situations you're ever going to run into in life, because on the one hand, you've got the importance of staying with a partner, which is just one of the most important principles on the planet. I counsel people to stay together who are married, just to try that almost no matter what. Then on the other hand, you've got somebody who is a drug addict, and who, if they don't experience the consequences of their behavior, will stay a drug addict. And if you enable them and help them to stay a drug addict, will very often end up dead and kill the people around them, because they tend to use and drive their children around and drive you around and drive their car around and kill their neighbors and kill their neighbors' kids and everybody else. Not to mention the fact that he's using an illegal substance in your home. And if he's caught with it in your home, when I say your home, I obviously mean your niece's home. If he's caught in the home, the DEA agents immediately confiscate your car, house, and everything you possess, and they really kind of enjoy doing it because it adds to their budget so that they can use it to catch the next guy. So in this case, there are some things you just can't put up with in a relationship. If your husband is, I was talking to a lady earlier, just moments ago, if your husband is having an affair, I say, let's work it out and see if we can work it out even if he's still having an affair. That's something you can work out without people dying. If your husband is addicted to heroin, everybody, I suppose, has different advice, but this is where people die. He dies, you die, the people around you die, and everybody loses everything. And so you tell a heroin addict, you get clean and you can come back. But if you don't get clean, you don't come back. It's just too dangerous. And you don't get to use heroin occasionally. You don't get to use it ever. None. Zero. He says he's an occasional user. Heroin users just don't use heroin occasionally. What they do is they use it a lot and they lie about it and say they're using it occasionally. So she can do whatever she wants to, but you'll discover how often he uses it by telling him that he can't use it at all. Because if he's only using it occasionally, he won't have trouble giving it up. That's how you discover the nature of an addiction. You want to find out whether somebody's addicted to a thing? It's very easy. Cut them off. Simple. And if you cut them off and they're not truly addicted, they don't mind. If you cut them off and they are really addicted, they go crazy, which he will. That's why he's making such a big deal about demanding that she put up with his drug use, gambling, stealing money from her and their relatives. People who are recreational heroin users don't steal from everybody they know to support their recreational occasional use. So he's definitely addicted and is a liar to boot. So she can do as she wants, but if she continues to enable his use, it'll get worse and worse, and she'll be sorry she didn't do something more definitive about it. It's a terrible problem. Here's a mother who says, I'm looking for suggestions and experience. My 4-year-old doesn't like authority and doesn't like it when she's asked to do something she doesn't want to do. She's been hitting, kicking, and slapping, and the other night picked up a stick and whacked me in the face hard. We've tried everything. It's been my policy as a parent to live by example, even when my now 21-year-old was growing up. So I apologize to her, the 4-year-old, when I overreact and tell the truth about me and tell her that I will do better next time. I still feel guilty, and I'm working on that part as well, and working on knowing I do the best I can. When you've been hit, kicked, slapped, and even hit in the head with a hammer, it can be really hard not to overreact when you're out of options, tired, and almost in tears. Trying so hard to be a good parent and feeling as if you're just depleted. I just sit and cry at times. I give boundaries, and I'm clear with my communication, and I try really hard to love unconditionally. There's a boundary, though, between loving unconditionally and letting them continue behaviors that do and will cause serious issues. Yeah, I think you've pretty much crossed that line. I've talked and explained and reasoned as best as I can to a 4-year-old. Any suggestions? Desperate. Now, I wrote this person to get a few more details, to get an idea about how often this is going on, because it's a little hard to tell sometimes whether a child is reacting to the anger of the parent, in which case the advice would go in one direction, or whether the child is doing this all the time and terrorizing the parent, in which case the suggestions would be completely different. So I asked, and it turns out that this child is a girl, and we'll call her Susie. Susie hits often. I get hit several times a day, and see, most of the time this mother does not react in anger. So different things are going on at different times that she hits. She hits me in the face. When she hit me in the face with a stick, I was sitting on the bed with her father, and we just had an issue where he brought her the wrong medicine at the store, and I was trying to get her ready for bed. Bedtime is a time when behaviors begin, not always, but often. I said, let's get our jammies on. And I was already upset with her father for bringing the wrong medicine. Then yesterday, she just hit me out of the blue several times that day because, for example, she didn't get what she wanted the minute that she asked for it. I communicated clearly most of the time and clearly said, for example, I'll get your drink when I'm done with this. And her face just turned red and she got very angry and started hitting me. Now, you got to pay attention to this because this is going to be hard for you to hear. Children do hit when they're empty and afraid and so on. And if we add to that by being angry, this is kind of a version of what I was saying to the lady whose husband was having an affair earlier. If we react to our children by being angry, it's obvious that we add to their emptiness and fear. But it's not as obvious that we add to their emptiness and fear if we're empty. So it's really obvious that we make things worse when we come at a child angry. But what you're doing with your child is you're afraid of your own kid. And you're so empty yourself that you're afraid to say to your child, no. No. Not no angry, just no. And mean it. You let this child absolutely rule you. And so we've got a child who's empty and alone and who needs to feel loved by somebody. Instead, what she senses from you is emptiness. And so instead of having a parent to love her, what she does is, she's just like an adult. If she can't have somebody to love her, she will reach out and control somebody. She'll reach out and use imitation love, just like anybody else. So she reaches out and tells you what to do. She reaches out and slaps you and hits you and kicks you. And having power is better than having nothing at all. So that's what this kid does. The clues are everywhere in your message. She hits you several times a day. You don't know what to do. You get frustrated. You apologize to the child instead of, there's no place in here that you tell the child no. Here's a child who's 4 years old and she's constantly demanding what she wants. And you say that you scurry as quickly as you can to go get the child everything she wants the minute that she asks for it. Here's a child where you say, I'll go get your drink as soon as I'm done with this. The child's 4 years old. Is she in a wheelchair? Does she have bilateral broken legs? When a child is 4 years old, the child gets her own stinking drink. That's what she does. This child has been crippled and spoiled. It's not meant in an unkind way at all. This kid needs to learn that real happiness comes not only from feeling loved, but also from being loving and responsible. We're happy when we're loved, loving, and responsible. It's all three. And this child, and you didn't mean to do it, is just spoiled. This kid thinks that the world revolves around her. And unfortunately, it revolves around her in the form of imitation love. So she gets attention, power, praise, and that's all she knows to do. And everybody just scurries to give her what she wants. So this is going to be a real drag for you for a while, because unlearning this is really tough. But it's only tough for a few days. Because you have to unlearn her addiction to imitation love, just like unlearning a heroin addict. And let me tell you, it's that tough for a few days. It's like watching her go into withdrawal. You have to be kind and sweet to her, but read the parenting book. Read it from cover to cover and read how you deal with a spoiled kid, a child who's a victim, a child who's demanding. Read the book. And when this child says, I want a... You say, that's fine, the sink's right over there, and there's a glass, and you can go get a drink. And when her little face turns red, and she goes to slap you, you reach out and you hold her hand. And just as sweetly and gently, but absolutely firmly, you say, we don't hit, ever, ever. And you say it with a finality. You don't say, oh, please don't hit. Do you hear what that's saying? When you say to a 4-year-old who's a power-hungry animal, please don't hit me, you just as well say, hit me again. Really. You're begging the child to hit. Do you know why? It's your tone of voice. Because as soon as you go, oh, please don't hit me, you're saying, I'm such a weakling that you can hit me again because you'll have control over me. That's what you're saying with the tone. With the tone, you have to say to this child, you reach out as soon as the child, and you hold, and you say, we don't hit. Ever. We never hit. And if the child then throws a little fit, you show zero emotional reaction to it. You just turn and you go back and know what you're doing. She wants to throw a little fit about you holding her hand and saying, we don't. Then you turn back to her every, 30 to 60 seconds, and you pat her on the head and say, I sure love you. You never want to leave the impression with the child that you don't love her as a result of her throwing a little temper tantrum or throwing things across the room. No, you love her, but we don't hit. And we don't scream. And we don't throw little temper tantrums. And you don't ever give her what she wants as a result of a tantrum. So when she's screaming, I want a glass of water, and she's screaming, you say, oh, I'll be glad to discuss the water with you when you can talk to me. But I can't understand you when you're screaming. And so you wait until she can talk to you. Then when she talks, you say, the water's right over there. Now, if she wants something out of the fridge, then you say, oh, well, come with me. You don't just go get it for her. You train her increasingly to do her own responsibilities. So you walk with her over to the fridge. You get her a little step stool so that she goes and gets her own glass. Then you teach her increasingly how much of the job she can do so that she's not a little responsibility cripple, feeling like you are her servant, which is what you are now. She needs to be trained to be happier, which comes as a result of being more responsible and caring about other people, which right now she doesn't. And she can be trained to do that even at age 4. And we'll talk more about this if you're having more difficulty with her, which you probably will. She's just really been trained to control the family. Whoa. And it's a tough thing to unlearn, and it's not your fault. You just didn't know any different. You speak of imitation love, somebody says, as something we experience when we first begin to date. How do we begin a new relationship without imitation love? Is this possible? When you say you put your best foot forward, are we supposed to show how selfish we are and so on? Every relationship is going to have some element of imitation love in it from the beginning. I don't know how you could possibly avoid that. Just as a result of who we are as flawed human beings, we're going to have some element of attraction to our partners as a result of the way we're praised by them, to some degree of power, some degree of physical attraction, some degree of safety. You can't avoid that. You'd have to be just absolutely... You'd have to be completely spiritual in nature and have no physical characteristics. So there's no way you're going to avoid that. The thing is, early in a relationship, you simply have to be truthful about it. So you have to say, okay, so I'm attracted to this, this, and this, which I realize there's some element of imitation love in that, in my partner. And I'm also being truthful about these flaws about myself as I begin a dating relationship. And you don't have to be truthful about all of your flaws early in a dating relationship. That would just pretty much scare off the entire planet. So, you tell the truth about this little flaw and that little flaw, and one by one, you kind of reveal yourself to your partners, and that's how you get to know people. And then you wait and you see if your partner can reveal little bit by bit more and more about themselves. And you get to know each other. But of course there will be some element of attraction based on imitation love. Well, who cares? That's fine. Just be honest about it and be honest about your flaws, and it'll work out just fine. It's the honesty that will save you. Here's somebody who says... Apparently, I have a strong need for imitation love in the form of safety. I was unaware of this until you and others pointed it out to me. I've started to look at my decisions at the moment that I'm about to make them and determine if I'm acting out of fear or not. Do you have other suggestions on how to recognize or eliminate getting and protecting for the sake of safety? Oh, you're already doing a great job. If you're starting to recognize it, you're halfway there. You just look for moments of feeling anxious, nervous, frustrated, a concern for what other people think before you make decisions. Those are all evidences that you're looking for safety. look for those and shoot, you'll see you're seeking safety 90% of the time. Last week we had, if you'll remember, a mother who asked what to do about her 3 boys. You may remember, I don't think we did discuss their ages, but 9, 7, and 6, who were a terror during church. They wouldn't sit with their arms folded, you remember, all during church. And I told her that she was expecting way too much of boys that age to sit, for well over an hour like little statues and listen to speakers, to be reverent for that long. So I suggested a number of activities she could try, and I listed a handful of them just off the top of my head. But, drawing pictures, counting words the speaker said that began with a particular letter, write notes to the boys, from her to them and back, and, a bunch of things. And so she wrote kind of a follow-up. She said, your idea to pick a letter of the day was a hit. After the video, I tried to change my thinking about church and have fun with the speakers. So I sat down with the boys and told them that I changed my mind about having them fold their arms all throughout church. I got to tell you, sweetie, just that act alone is enough to endear you to your kids. How many times does a parent sit down with their kids and say, I've changed my mind, my approach to a thing was wrong? Never. Parents don't do that with their kids. They just don't ever do that. So that alone was such a courageous, loving act, period. Like, hooray, you get a medal. I continued by telling them that the only time that I fold my arms would be during one part of the service, and that we could all do that together. And then I would ask them to pick a letter, any letter. The letter of the day was F. I explained with excitement in my voice how fun it was going to be to see who could catch the most words by the speaker that started with the letter F, and oh my goodness, I've never had a better Sunday since I've been a mom than today. My nervousness was gone, and I just loved my boys all throughout the meeting. And I told them that if they got a wink from me, it was another point on their paper. They smiled so big when I would give them the winks. I had so much fun, was able to get something out of the talks myself. It was so peaceful. Well, then after church, the boys' Sunday school teacher sought me out to tell them how reverent they were during Sunday school class, which was after the big church meeting. Usually, the teachers pull me aside to tell me how rotten my kids are. I know this was because they felt the love and acceptance from me in church. This was a huge change from last week. So thanks so much for helping me see how my kids viewed church meetings with me. Well, it's all you, sweetie. You're the one that loved them. And then she goes on to mention that, her whole notion of how church had to be came from her father, who had been a minister and had made them all sat with their little arms, all stiff and tight, like they were all tied up. And then she went on to say how during the rest of the week she had focused more on the boys and allowed one of the boys to even start his own little, and mind you, they're just little kids, 7, 9, and whatever it was. One of the boys had been bugging her to start his own little business, a lawn mowing business. And she had just been putting him off and not listening to the child. And so finally she started listening to the kid. And looked at the flyer that he'd made, and it was a cute little flyer, $10 a yard. And they took some of the flyers around, and he was 9 years old, and he'd figured this all out in his head. And they had a wonderful weekend together helping this kid. And she's having fun with her boys instead of managing them, beating them up emotionally, trying to control them. Anyway, she's just celebrating, having fun, loving them and teaching them instead of berating them and trying to control them. Loving people is way more fun than controlling people. Controlling people is really kind of a drag. It doesn't work. It's not fun. It makes life miserable for you, and it makes life miserable for everybody else. So these are pretty fun stories to read. We've only got like 1 minute left, so I'm going to suggest we had We had a call today, a conference call that we're going to put up on the site, both the sites, the reallove.com site and the Real Love Workplace site. We had a conference call that was with several workplaces all over the country, where we talked about Real Love in the workplace and how that can be applied to change people's approach in the workplace. So I'm going to suggest over the next week or so you go to those two sites, the reallove.com and the Real Love Workplace site, and we'll have that interview up as an audio link, and you'll be able to listen to that yourself and be able to send it to other people. So we've come to the end of our time. I look forward to getting more questions from you. We got through almost all of them. And send them to greg@reallove.com, and we'll get to the couple that we didn't get to next time, which will be Tuesday, September 16. And in the meantime, we look forward to seeing you and be loving you and thinking about you. So we'll see you then.